Hey guys, welcome back to Olivia's Blooms. I am so excited for today's project. I'm doing a little bit of a cut flower bulb experiment. Now some of you might be familiar with what's known as lasagna gardening, and the idea of lasagna gardening is similar to how you layer different ingredients in a lasagna. You layer different bulbs or flowers within the same bed, and the goal is that they come up and bloom at different times, and it's an efficient way to use space because you can plant a bunch of different flowers in the same area without having to dig them out and replant them. So I've never tried this before. This is a new experiment for me. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm not sure how well it's gonna go, but what I'm gonna do is I have one of my 4x4 beds here, and I am going to lasagna plant daffodils, tulips, ranunculus, and dahlias. So I have a bunch of bulbs and I picked 12 of each that I'm okay if they don't grow. I have a lot of dahlias this year and a lot of bulbs, and I ordered a ton more ranunculus, so I'm gonna definitely plant some of those in the spring the way that I've had success. But I really wanted to try this because if it works, it's an easy way for me to have flowers in the spring without tons and tons of work that comes with pre-sprouting ranunculus and dahlias and planting them all in the spring. So a couple of notes about where I am. I am in Charlottesville, Zone 7A. Dahlias are not cold hardy. We are Zone 7. Dahlias are Zone 8 and above. But I have experimented with leaving dahlias in the grounds in the past with barely any mulch over it, and so far they have always come back. But what I'm going to do for this bed is I'm going to heavily mulch it and also put frost cloth over it so that the dahlias will stay hopefully warm enough and not freeze and be able to come back in the spring. But again, if they don't, that's okay. I'm going to have plenty of dahlias that I can plant in the spring if these don't work. So this is going to be really fun to try, and I'm excited to bring you guys along with me. Let me just give you a close-up of what I have going on and how I'm going to plant these. Okay, so you'll have to excuse my very messy garden. I'm in the process of fall cleanup, but I know you guys don't mind. So here's my 4x4 bed, and I have dug out the soil to about 6 inches below, a little bit more in some places, but the soil wasn't all the way to the top here. And 6 inches is where I'm going to plant my daffodils and my tulips. Right here I left these crests that we direct sowed together, and I'm hoping that these will bloom very prolifically and early in the spring. So I just left those on a little island there. Those are also an experiment because I've never grown crests, fall planted crests before. And all of the dirt is just here in my wheelbarrow. Now this is, I mentioned, a 4x4 bed. What I'm going to do is, for each of these plants, I could probably pack this full of tulips and daffodils if I wanted. For dahlias and ranunculus, you need to plant them a little further apart. Ranunculus is usually about 9 inches apart, dahlias 12 to 18 inches apart. But I'm going to put 12 of each kind in here, knowing that they're going to be a little more crowded because there'll be other things planted nearby. So that's my goal, is to plant 12 daffodils, 12 tulips, 12 ranunculus, and 12 dahlias. I'm going to plant the dahlias and the ranunculus at about 3 to 4 inches, and I'm going to stagger them so that they're not in each other's way if they start to grow around the same time. I'm also going to amend the soil pretty well because there will be so many bulbs growing in here. Here are my bulbs, you can see here. Here's the frost cloth I'm gonna use. I've got my biotone starter fertilizer. I have extra straw I'm gonna throw on top as well. And then my wonderful husband saved a bunch of leaves and grass clippings from when he mowed our lawn, and I'm gonna put those on as well. So as I said, very thick layer of mulch and protection here. Now it's a fine balance. I want it warm enough that the dahlias and the ranunculus don't freeze, but I don't want it so warm that the tulips and daffodils don't get their chilling period. But we'll see how it goes. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this, just a close-up. So here is a daffodil bulb, And you can see the roots here. You want to plant the roots down and the pointy side up. But I know lots of flower farmers who just throw these in the ground any which way, and they always find their way up. These bulbs are pretty resilient. But if we take a, let's say a 12 by 12 approximate area here, I'm going to plant one daffodil there. And let me tell you about the variety I'm going to. So these daffodils are just a double cut flower mix that I got from Flower Hill Farm. It was a special that came from C&J Farms through Jake Wholesale for the small scale growers. So I'm really excited about these. I ordered the amethyst mix tulips from Eden Brothers. And I'm gonna put the tulips right here. Then I have a bunch of dahlias I divided, and I didn't even label them because I kind of know what they all are, and once they're blooming, I don't really care what order they're in. So after I plant the tulips and the ranunculus, I'm going to cover those with a few inches of soil so I remember where they are. So we'll get this whole square. We'll add another layer of soil on top of those so that I've got a thicker layer. And then in the other two corners is where I'm going to plant. Oh, and I keep finding these hickory nuts that the squirrels are hiding in my garden. But I'll plant one dahlia there. And then last, and look at these gorgeous ranunculus. The ranunculus corm here. A little bit higher up, and then I will cover all this. Now I'm also going to amend as I go along with biotone. I'd probably throw it down with the daffodils and some compost I'm gonna add as well. And each of these hopefully will grow on their own and have enough space without me having to plant them in the spring. These ranunculus are from a mix I saved from the spring. It was a chamalo mix and a vineyard mix, so reds, some deep pinks, and a beautiful white. I loved those. I can put some pictures on the screen. And then just the dahlias I grew this year. It's a mix of, I can tell you right now, I know this one is Moore Place dahlia, and then I've got Wizard of Oz, Emery Place dahlia, Small World dahlia, and I think a Blue Boy dahlia. So now that I showed you how I'm gonna do this, let's get all these bulbs in the ground. Here's just a close-up on how I am planting the dahlias and the ranunculus, since I showed you the daffodils and the tulips. So if many of you watched Florette's How to Divide and Store Dahlias, I tried to divide my dahlias down to about 1 to 2 tubers, and hopefully with one eye, but some of these I wasn't sure, and so if some of these dahlias don't come up, it might be because I didn't divide them correctly. But I'm planting them sideways, and with what I think is the growth point facing up, so you can sort of see that one there. And then the ranunculus, I am placing these tentacle-like things down. They're almost like the mini dahlia tubers, and the pointy side up. And again, these are a little bit closer than you'd normally plant them, but I don't have my next row until pretty far away, and so the goal is that they should have room to grow, but we shall see. And then I'm going to cover these up with another 3 inches of soil, and then I'm going to show you how I'm going to mulch them. And planting them in rows like this was super quick and easy. I think it took me a total of less than 20 minutes since I had all my supplies gathered to get these in the bed. All right, the next thing I'm gonna add is a layer of compost. Again, we got a lot of bulbs in here close together, so I'm gonna give them some extra nutrition. And I'm not too worried about this burying them too deep. This is just a very thin layer. Probably won't be more than ½ inch at most. So I'm just gonna spread that around. Okay, now the next thing I'm gonna do, and I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but I cleared away the drip. I just unstaked it and pulled it out. Now I'm gonna put the drip tubing back in so that I do not have to worry about it in the spring. And I am just using, I think this is 6-inch, 1/4-inch drip tubing with emitters every 6 inches. And that's what I've been using all season, and it's worked really, really well for the vegetable garden. And I'm not gonna have this on, of course, during winter. 1, because of the freezing temperatures, but 2, you wanna make sure these bulbs don't get too wet. And we get sufficient rain here. We have pretty wet winters, so I'm not gonna be watering these at all, and hoping that they don't rot. I'm probably not going to put any water prevention on top of them because I'm more worried about trapping water in than I am keeping it out. But again, this is an experiment, so if it doesn't go well, maybe we can try again next year, but differently. And I'm gonna be careful as I'm putting these stakes in not to pierce any bulbs. So very gently putting these in. And this way, when I uncover the mulch in the spring, everything's gonna be ready to go, and I'll be thanking myself from doing all this work in the fall. Okay, now that the drip tubing is all staked, I'm gonna add this straw next. And I didn't have to add the straw, but I just happen to have this left over from when we were seeding our grass. This is easy straw seeding mulch with tack. I don't really need the tack, but it's what I have, and I don't think it's gonna hurt these. So I'm going to put a thick layer of this on. And again, we're in zone 7, so I don't need to go too heavy with the mulch, but because these are raised beds, they're gonna get a little bit colder than if these tubers were in the ground. So I am gonna give them a pretty good amount of protection. Okay, so this ended up being a pretty thick layer, much thicker than I was expecting. So I think I'm going to not put leaves on top of this because I'm gonna be adding frost cloth. I think I'm gonna leave these like this and save those leaves to mulch another vegetable garden bed. So the next step I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my hoops over this, and I'm gonna put my frost cloth over top. And what's nice about the frost cloth is I can put it back on when my ranunculus start growing, and I found that that little bit of extra shade helped me get some taller stems, and it worked really well for me this spring, so I'll probably try growing them under the frost cloth again. It's really thin, I'll show you, so lets lots of light in, but I'm gonna just leave this mulched in straw and see how they do. So what I'm gonna be using are, these are some inexpensive hoops my husband got me off of Amazon for Christmas last year. They're okay, I already had one snap, but for the price, they work pretty well, and they're really easy to install. So you have this bamboo stake here, and you have a pole that slides in and out. And what I'm gonna do is put the bamboo stake in one corner. I'm gonna put another bamboo stake on the other side. And you just press it in. And then it comes with these green clips you can see here, and these clip the frost cloth onto the hoops. So I'm gonna put probably 3 across. I think that's usually enough, maybe 4. And then I'm gonna put the frost cloth on this. I could just lay the frost cloth on top, right on top of the hay here, but I'm gonna put the structure up just so I have it in spring when I want to use it. Alright, and I'm gonna start with a thin layer, but I'm gonna keep more of this around so that I can double it up if it gets really, really cold here. But for now, this will let moisture in and out, sunlight in and out, but hopefully trap some heat in this bed. I'm also going to leave the rest of that length on in case I want to grow something when I pull up my carrots right next door, maybe some winter lettuce seed. And I'm going to stake the edges of this frost cloth in just because it helps keep it a little sturdier and helps hold it up in the rain. And I'm just using my regular garden stakes, if I can find them. Just regular garden stakes. I'm going to stake in the edges and then I will clip them also to the front. This also helps trap the heat in a little bit more so that there's no wind can get underneath. Okay, here's a peek at our bulbs all tucked in for the winter. I don't know if you can see very well, but there's a nice thick layer of hay. We've got our frost cloth, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this turns out in the spring. Now, once those bulbs start coming up, I'm gonna clear away all of the straw. And then hopefully we'll have some beautiful flowers to cut. I'm also gonna put up Hortanova netting so that my dahlias are gonna be staked a little better. And the tulips and daffodils and ranunculus don't necessarily need it, but it's not gonna hurt them. So thank you guys for doing this quick, fun, easy experiment with me. I will keep you updated, but I hope you had as much fun in the garden today as I did.